And it is the Carrie Harrison Files coming to you live today from Zuckerberg, Switzerland, or the foothills of the Alp. Why? Because it's a private school that's cool. And we have been spending the last number of days and have more days to go teaching the next generation about media. Now, we spend a lot of time talking about media here, talking about its effects, talking about what's fake news, real news, TikTok, the whole soup, cat, and pizzas, surveillance, all of it. But what about the next generation? Do they know about this stuff? Well, they're not taught it. But there is one school that realizes that the future can be different. I'm going to give you a quick example. Let's say, think back when you were in school, sitting in front of a blackboard, movie theater style, 2 rows of people, a teacher with chalk up on the blackboard teaching you about gravity. Sir Isaac Newton, Copernicus, whose head happened to fall off and roll down the hill because he believed in the earth was flat. All of that. They spend a month killing themselves to teach you about gravity. But you're now a modern kid who's 12. You step out of the classroom, you grab your phone, and Kanye West or Kim Kardashian tweets that maybe gravity, I don't know, the jury's out. A school doesn't know that happened. And now there's 2 different belief systems going on. So that's what we're doing here. We're bringing people into the future who are going to save us. And they're smart. So we're really lucky. So today, coming to you live from Switzerland, we have a unbelievably superstar guest. We're streaming right now, by the way, to on Instagram, on YouTube, on anything with a chip and a signal. All you have to do is Google Carrie Harrison YouTube, and you're going to see this. This way we can stay connected when we arrive at your donation. At your donation. Oh, that's coming up next week, isn't it? Destination. And that way we can stay in touch. You can also just simply go to kpfk.net, N-E-T, kpfk.net to see the live video stream. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at carrieharrison.com, carrieharrison.com, C-A-R-Y, same spelling as Cary Grant. And there you're going to get a transcript of the entire show plus access to clips and stuff that we simply will do on the radio. Well, I want to welcome you back to the show that peels back the drywall of American politics and finds a nest of wires, rats, and the occasional Russian asset. Today, we're going to ask the question, what does it take to make the cult of Washington finally eat its own? Well, it turns out it might just be a name scratched into a flight log that's bound for Epstein Island. Now, before you start thinking that this is just another case of elite rot, and it is, let's remember the foundation, Russiagate, the original Cold War cosplay revival, a slow-motion car crash in which Russian oligarchs, compromat artists, and wannabe Bond villains found themselves cozied up to the American right like they were ordering vodka by the bucket. And somewhere between the compromat and the caviar sat a guy named Lev Parnas. Lev wasn't just looking around the fringes, he was in it. Translator, fixer, bagman, alleged go-between, and all-purpose political handyman, Giuliani's sidekick in the Ukraine dirt-digging expedition, the man who helped sell the idea that Hunter Biden was the final boss in a game of international corruption, when the real dungeon was being run from D.C. by the maestro of Mar-a-Lago, who now claims he's never met Lev in his life, not even once. Never heard of him. The greatest conspiracy ever. Completely coincidental that they've got audio together. But now it's not Ukraine that's bringing Washington to the edge. It's Epstein. You can jail journalists, gas protesters. You can gas protesters, that is, not jail gas protesters. Well, probably why not? Why not jail gas protesters as well? You can carpet bomb the truth, but once you look like you're getting frequent flyer miles on Epstein Air, well, the pitchforks come out and they've got night vision, which brings us to a man who's been on every rung of this satanic jungle gym, Lev Parnas. I have to polish my glasses. I think they're just all fogged up from the humidity here. Soviet-born, Giuliani-bred, and deep in Washington's inner sanctum until the prayers stopped and the subpoenas started. Lev didn't just drink the Kool-Aid, he helped stir the barrel. And when he tried to warn the country, the same Department of Justice that should have protected him threw him into a cell like a mob snitch. Lev's story isn't redemption, it's testimony of how a man can go from selling condos to laundering democracy through back channels and backstabbing foreign deals. And now he's blowing the whistle, not just on Washington, but on the whole warped machinery that's still pumping out made for TV slogans. You're going to recognize him from the recent NBC documentary, available now on Apple, on Hulu, all across the NBC platforms. Lev Parnas, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. Pleasure.
It's a big honor. You're already well known by tens of millions of people for having gone from naughty to nice. Let's talk a little bit about the overlap between the Epstein crew and the Ukraine plotters. Are we talking Venn diagram or carbon copy here?
I mean, your history repeats itself. You got a lot of things happening at the same time. And it's very important, as I tell all of my subscribers and all of my followers and viewers, is to keep your eye on the ball. There's certain important things happening, especially, let's talk about Ukraine and Russia quickly for a second before we get into the Epstein stuff. Donald Trump, has been playing this game back and forth about that he's going to be hard on Putin. And now he's even gotten some of the media, even some of the NATO leaders to come out there and say that he's, doing some sort of a shift. But this is all a ploy. It's all theatrics. I know the men. I know the people in the room. It's more of giving each other wins, because the most important thing that, he's given Putin 50 days of free reign to terror and do whatever he wants when it comes to Ukraine. As far as the weapons, he's just used a technical ploy to be able to sell it to his base, where he's not helping Ukraine, he's selling it to NATO. But now you're hearing all these different complications of how it's going to go through, who's going to be paying them, what our stockpiles is. And in the meantime, Ukraine still does not have the weapons. And in the meantime, right now, Russia's still carrying out their attacks. Going back here to the United States, Donald Trump has right now done something that even I did not expect he was going to do. He really basically destroyed his mega base. I know a lot of people talk about cracks, this. I could tell you one thing: unless you have been part of his mega base, or been around it long enough, you do not know how they think. And it's very difficult to think, because it's basically a cult, majority of it. And I was in that cult. I was part of that base, and I know exactly what this Epstein files means to his base. It's something that was inbred to us. It was something that was told to us was the connection between the deep state, between the Clintons, the Bidens, and all of this sexual child trafficking, some of the most disgusting things that later transformed, came out in some of the QAnon conspiracies and other things. To be able to, that was the win that Donald Trump was going to give his base. When he gets into office, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to uncover all of this. And not just for the political reasons, but for all the people out there that believe pedophiles and child molesters and all of these disgusting people should pay a price and go to prison for. So the fact that now he is the one that is protecting them, whoever they are, is even more disgusting.
Interestingly enough, Lev Parnas, we look today in the news, we find out that the entire division of the State Department that was in charge of human trafficking has been defunded. So that's going away. That would be the department that would actually handle the very thing that Lev is talking about. Simultaneously, public radio, which I am currently sitting, has also been completely defunding. So anybody able to talk about anything, look at anything objectively, subjectively, in any angle, is also going away. These are strange times. And Lev Parnas, you also were inside the MAGA machine. When did you first realize it wasn't a movement, but a marketing ploy with unfortunate side effects?
Well, I think it's even more serious than that. It's actually a cult. I know a lot of people are scared to say that word for some reason, because they feel, and I understand, because unless you were part of it, you don't know the difference if it was a cult or if people are just trying. But Mega is made up of a lot of several different groups of people. One of them being his hardcore base. That's the cult. That's the part I was in. I didn't know I was part of the cult until I left the cult, because when you're in the cult, you don't realize what you're doing. You feel that everything you're doing is right. and you're following your cult leader. And these are the people that no matter what Donald Trump does, no matter what constitutional right he takes away, no matter what diabolical ploy that he plays with our financial economical systems, they still make excuses and they still forgive him and go on, except for this time. So that's the cult. Then you have other people like that are self-ambition, like people that love cryptocurrency, that have lots of. I know a lot of, literally, they were Democrats or independents but because of Donald Trump's shift towards cryptocurrency, and because they had a lot of money tied up into it, and now they've made a lot of money because of Donald Trump's shift in that policy, they went and voted for him, not because, and they say it, they think he's an idiot, they don't like him, they think he's crooked, but for their own pocket, that's what made sense. So those are the type of people you have, or the never Democrats, the Republicans. Those are the group of people combined that you have in that mega crowd. But I was deep in the cult, and I only realized that once I was sitting in a prison cell. And even then, it was difficult to understand, because being in a cult, it's like being in a family. And when you start getting through, it's like having your parents or your family disown you, and you don't understand why, you don't understand what's happening until you snap out of it. And that was, thank God, because of my strong family that I had supporting me at the time.
I'm going to just jump in for a second, Lev Parnas, because we're teaching a lot of these students right now about when they hear something to ask questions, so it just doesn't turn into endless, boring CNN, where it doesn't matter what you say, we're just going to ask you another question. You can just say whatever you want. You said something profound, which was, when I was in prison, most people, at least the kids in here, probably cannot say that when I was in prison. But you can say that, and you did not anticipate being in prison because you were actually helping somebody, but they turned around and made you the bad guy.
It was even bigger than that. I mean, I didn't think I was just helping somebody. I thought I was an American hero, as crazy as it sounds. I thought I was saving our democracy, because I was one of those people that was embedded to believe in the deep state. I believed that there was a deep state. I believed that George Soros was linked to it and all of this. So when I was sent on my mission by Donald Trump, the president of the United States at the time, to go to Ukraine and other countries all over the world to put pressure on, presidents, prime ministers, and other oligarchs to make certain things happen, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I thought I was going to get a Medal of Freedom. I thought I was going to get, recognition. I would come home and tell my wife. She thought I was crazy. She said, "What are you talking about? You should not be involved in the things you're involved." But I couldn't see it because, again, I was at the highest echelon. I mean, at the White House. I was getting directions from Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump. It wasn't like somewhere behind the scenes. And so that power, that strength that overtakes you is different. So that's why, and I apologize, maybe I went a little bit off the subject, but that's why, I talk about, being in that cult and being part of that environment is so difficult until you snap out of it and realize where you're at.
Carrie Harrison with you. This is the Carrie Harrison Files, live streaming right now. You can simply Google Carrie Harrison YouTube. You can go to kpfk.net, and there you will see live streaming video. You will see Lev Parnas. You'll also see some B-roll and some other things that you cannot hear on the radio side. But that's the beautiful thing. When this show is finished, it then renders into a podcast, becomes an audiobook on audible.com, and ends up in different states where 1,000 books in today's United States have already been banned, like Mark Twain, The Wizard of Oz, things that you would never think would be banned, but they tend to invite people to think and analyze, and that's not the popular flavor at the moment, except in some places where it's still a really good thing, critical thinking. We're talking right now to Lev Parnas, former Giuliani associate, key player in the Trump-Ukraine scandal. He's turned over tapes, he's testified before Congress, and now, as the Epstein files sent shockwaves through Washington's base, he's here to connect the dots that they may not want you to see. So let's talk about some of those dots. You were one of the dot builders, admittedly. When you went into this, did you have a sense that it was going to become what it would become, which was a dangerous, objectionable thing to many? Or did you go in with like a good heart thinking you were helping?
Oh, I thought not only was I helping, I was a donor. I was never involved in politics. I went from becoming a donor to becoming an insider to becoming part of the family to eventually being sent on these missions to do all of these shadow diplomacy, like I write in my book, things. So, and all of those things, even at some of the times when I knew it was dangerous and I was in a lot of dangerous situations, I thought I was doing good. And that's the whole thing about it. You could never think that the president of the United States is going to ask you to do something bad. And that was the reality to me, that I realized that, it doesn't matter if you're the president of the United States or if you're just a regular person selling, hamburgers at McDonald's. We're all human beings, and we're all, are driven by certain emotions, ambitions, and greed and things that, sometimes people could mask him in a better way. But Donald Trump has such a hardcore narcissism, it doesn't allow him to mask it. And that's in our favor, because if Donald Trump in any way was a little bit more, not smarter, but a little bit more, had was able to just shut up and hold it back and let it play out, we would be in a lot more trouble. That's our savior, is because Donald Trump has such a narcissism that he can't let one thing go by, and he just goes after things that eventually come back to bite him.
It's interesting you say that. And I'm just going to take it on a kind of a different level. So you're originally from the Soviet Union once upon a time. You've completely immersed yourself in the American way of life. For people that are watching right now that might not be Americans, we've always talked about our presidents. That's one of the gifts that we have in America, is that every president gets talked about. So this is not a strange thing that we're suddenly mentioning this president. It's a tradition. And to your point, Lev, one of the reasons for the First Amendment, which is eschewed in our conversation in our Constitution, it's the First Amendment, not the 18th Amendment. The first one is freedom of speech.
That's right.
And the founding fathers of this country knew that if you couldn't get in the middle of the street and yell about the president, you would sit at home and get a big resentment and start to plan something to ruin the government's opportunity to do what it wanted to do. So instead, you go out in the street, you scream and yell, you get it off your chest, you go home, you're okay, you've decompressed. And so, as you're saying, with this kind of narcissism, that the president happens to just love to tweet at 3 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 6, whatever, do this, do that, say whatever, it doesn't build up so much that he explodes in one big way, which could be with nuclear weapons, theoretically.
It could be with anything, absolutely. I mean, and we see a lot of explosions. I mean, it's just we're just so jaded by all the craziness and the stuff that he does, is that if you take any one of those things, it could be one of the biggest things in history. But there's just so many. Just think about it. We have literally not even legal immigrants or illegal. We have American citizens that are being dragged off the streets, American citizens that are screaming, I'm an American citizen, and they're being thrown in the concentration camps, makeshift concentration camps for days at a time. Some are being shipped overseas until they figure out, you know, because they don't fit they fit a certain profile that Donald Trump is right now using for immigration reform. I mean, that's huge. I mean, the fact that he shuts down media, sues them. Look at what happened today. There was Rupert Murdoch, his own buddy. The Wall Street Journal put out a letter from his Epstein letters, and Donald Trump threatened him. He wrote a post, just like you said on Truth Social, saying that if you do it, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to destroy you, just like I did everybody else. Just like I went after CBS, ABC, George Stephanopoulos. Today, it's
Stephen Colbert has lost
today.
his job.
Exactly. I was just about exactly Stephen Colbert, and he mentioned others that need to go. That's our first. That's right. Our First Amendment speech is one of the most, if not, they're all important, and you could argue which one's more important than the other. But in a time of like this, if we do not have a source of information that we could trust, eventually we all get brainwashed to become a cult. That's part of what dictatorship is all about. That's part of what authoritarianship is all about. It's to go out there and take away your ability to be able to get an information. And that's what he's doing. He's shutting down all sources of information unless they produce what he wants them to produce.
Lev Parnas, let's talk a little bit about ICE. ICE is our immigration service. Most people hadn't heard of it until maybe 6 months ago. It has just been given a budget that is 15 times bigger than the entire militaries of whole nations. So, in effect, it is larger. It's bigger than the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps is out there to kick ass. That's what it's there to do. It's out there to stir it up and make things happen. If you have something way bigger than the Marine Corps, it has to be prepared to do something big and large. I would hate to prognosticate a future in which something like that happens so darkly in America, but it's possible. ICE is now at polling stations. There's Project 2025, 900 delicious pages of everything you don't want to imagine could happen. Much of it now unfolding right in front of our eyes. Early voting bans. How coordinated is there a plan to rig future elections?
Oh my God, Carrier, God bless you. You just took out of my. This is what I've been sounding the alarm for the past, I'd say, since 4th of July. I mean, even earlier, I've been telling we all speak about Project 2025. We all know that Trump is trying to do away with election and stuff like that. But after July 4th, he even came out and spoke about it by making a comment saying on, standing on the balconies that my people promised me a fair and square election. Those were all signs. If you know Donald Trump, the way he talks, what I'm hearing from my sources, and it's very serious. I mean, he's going to do everything in his power because he sees the polls. He understands that the big, ugly bill that he pushed through the Senate and the Congress, even though his people pushed it, the majority of the country hates it. There's going to cause, taking Medicaid away from millions of people. It's going to eventually cause to death. Destroy. Even in the red states. I mean, most of these urban hospitals are going to be closing down in of these red states. So he understands that that's not something that he's going to win on in the midterms. He understands what he's doing with immigration. He could see the polls. Donald Trump is not stupid. He watches and see it. And exactly for one of your viewers just wrote down, it's called election reform. That's what I write about in my Substack every day. It's called election reform. It's a part of Project 2025, which was written by Russell Vought and Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller is the architect. He's pushing it. Donald Trump's just a stooge that's out there, that has the pen and the voice that's pushing it through. But it's all of that, what you said, and then some. And ICE, that's a great, thing that you mentioned, because even in Donald Trump's own words, we don't have a border problem anymore, that there's nobody crossing the border, that supposedly Tom Homan stopped all of that. So why does ICE need such a budget bigger than any of our federal institutions out there? Because that's his Gestapo. That's his basically, like the FSB or the KGB in Russia. That's Trump's loyalty. The ICE machine is the most loyal, and he's going to use him to intimidate during election. People are going to be scared to come out to vote. They're going to be also right now with the Pam Bondi thing. You got to also look at all his crypto messages in his Truth Social post to all his mega sycophants. He said to him, leave Pam Bondi alone because she is currently looking into election reform and helping me do what needs to be done. So leave her alone because she's changing rules in the DOJ of who they could go after and who not. They're going into different states and trying to reorganize, to pick up more seats in Congress. I mean, he's doing everything possible to make sure that our vote doesn't count and he's able to stay, start off with 2026 before we even get to 2028. Because if we don't win 2026, you could forget about ever having elections in 2028. I could promise you that. You hear it here first.
Carrie Harrison with you. This is the Carrie Harrison Files. You know, we have a lot of Europeans sitting in here in the audience right now, and they're young. So a lot of this may seem very strange to them. They're hearing words like Stasi, Gestapo. Some of their own cultures will have had that in the history, and that we're talking about that in a serious way. We're not just throwing weird adjectives out of the middle of the air, but this is what we're actually seeing here in the US, and we've never had it. My ancestors, founding fathers of this country, framers of the Constitution, my ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence. And one of the central arguments in the Declaration of Independence was to King George, we don't have enough immigrants. We need more immigrants. And even in the Constitution, it talks about bringing in more immigrants. So that's actually the heart and soul of our country, not the problem with our country. But if you don't know that, well, you don't know that. And I think that's the nature of it. I'm just going to reintroduce you, Les, as we get to the end of this conversation. We're speaking with, I keep saying Les, I apologize.
Okay.
I've got a friend by that name who I like. We're speaking with Lev Parnas, the former right-hand man to Rudy Giuliani and the accidental archivist of the Trump-Ukraine circus. He was on the ground floor of what he says was the fake Biden scandal, the backdoor deals with Ukrainian prosecutors, and the international derailment that helped ignite the first impeachment. He's done time. He's turned over tapes, testified to Congress, and now with the Epstein files crackling in the public fryer in Washington's base, threatening to mutiny. Lev is with us with a front row view of how the sausage was really made. Why did you end up in prison, Lev? Here you were helping, and we've heard that the DOJ was weaponized then. We know it's weaponized now. It looks like it seems to always be weaponized, no matter who presidents are.
Well, you could say that definitely, because I also talk about very important. We're all human beings. Just because you're an FBI agent or if you're a prosecutor, or you're still, again, like I said, it depends if you're a good person by nature or a bad person by nature. It's going to relate to how you proceed and do your work. So if you're honest and you're an honest person, you're going to be an honest prosecutor. You're going to be an honest FBI agent. If you're corrupt, if you're a liar, if you cheat and you get that position, you're going to be a cheat when you're up here. And that's why we have, the good, the bad, and it's you can't get away with that, when it comes to where we're at. So I'm sorry, I forgot what the question you were saying a little bit. We got caught up.
It's okay. Let's wrap it up with people who believe all of this is true. They still believe in deep states. They still believe in this. They believe in that. And then we have people who suddenly are wide open, or at least somewhat open. Do you see some light at the end of the tunnel? Is there a possibility that the worst doesn't happen, that we somehow can rescue ourselves? I'm not going to say Chuck Schumer is going to snap to life or the Democrats are going to suddenly do something. But can we, the people, do you see confidently that people can do something really good to make the future better?
Absolutely. And that's what I say all the time. I say Donald Trump is not scared of Chuck Schumer, the Senate, Congress, DOJ, or the media. Donald Trump is scared of only one thing, and that is the people, our voices. We need to make sure that we keep speaking up, make our voices be heard. We have to also understand that we need leadership, because we, the people, are doing the better, but the Democratic leadership, we need somebody to step up. We need somebody to take charge. And it's not going to be Schumer, and it's not going to be Bernie Sanders. You need some fresh new blood, somebody that understands, that's willing to fight the fight and take it to Donald Trump and them. So that we definitely need that. And with that also, I just wanted to make let all your viewers know, is one of the things that right now, the biggest hope we have, as somebody that was part of MEGA, I could tell you that the president he has given us now, I never had on my bingo card and never anticipated. The breakup we're having because of the Epstein files is tremendous, and we need to use it to our advantage. But we can't have just the media go out there and chase every little, like the P tapes and all the different, because there's going to be lots of conspiracy theories, lots of leaked information, to be able to then shift it and say it's the deep state, to get his base back to saying that they were trying to frame me. You need to listen to me, because I was one of them. And what I'm saying to you is, we need to use people like me, like others that came out of the MEGA world, to go now have town halls inside mega deep rates and talk about how what Donald Trump did to us and is doing to them, how he lies because they're starting to see. And if we do some of these things and we start doing them early enough, and we have leadership in the Democratic Party that goes away from the old way and just wakes up and smells the coffee and realizes it's a new era, a new fight, and somebody that they are not used to.
Well, it looks like the Epstein list is something that 100% of everyone wants to see. It doesn't matter where they are. So that is going to continue to be a real irritant as it's being withheld. It's the Streisand effect, which went back, I think, in the 2000s. She had a giant house on a cliff in Malibu, and it got out in the news, and she said, oh, it's not mine. It's not really mine. And the more she denied it, the more pictures of it, and the bigger it got. And that's now called the Streisand effect. And the more you deny the Jeffrey Epstein files, the bigger and juicier and more creepy they get. So it's a very interesting moment. And I want to thank you, Lev Parnas. Give us your Substack so we can go check you out.
Thank you, Kerry. Please follow me at levparnas.substack.com. That's where I do all my work. And I appreciate for you having me here.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. And we will definitely get you back again. Coming up, we're going to have a little fun, frolic, mayhem, and merriment. Half the country doesn't even vote. The other half thinks memes are policy. We're going to be talking with branding mastermind David Downing, one of America's top 25 extraordinary minds in marketing, about why swing voters now hold the keys to the kingdom. That's a tiny fraction of the electorate make the real decision, and how democracy's hanging by a thread tied to a focus group. Well, it's coming up next. And then after that, we're going to have a couple of kids on who are here at the school to tell us what they see in the world. We already know what we see. We think it's all true. What do they see? They're stuck here for 85.7. I'm making up that little extra part. 85.7 more years. What is that like? What do they see? It is the Carrie Harrison Files. More to come.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you call low-cost airlines because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee. Often 75% off. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795.
And it is the Carrie Harrison Files live streaming from the foothills of the Swiss Alps. Yep. It's a school called Institute Montana, which is one of the smartest schools. It happens to be my alma mater. So they do let me come back, and I get to bring with me what you, the listeners, have taught me, that we have a social responsibility to pass on the information and give it to the next generation so that they have the tools at their disposal to navigate a better future. Plus, if we're very lucky, they'll rescue us from, the mess we've made. Yeah, there's that. So there's a lot of upside to everything. Education is key. The founding fathers knew it. They knew that a country of nitwits, hispidulite knuckle walkers, was not going to go anywhere. So they actually came up with education back then. It wasn't formalized. And then during Abraham Lincoln became the Department of Education. And I've just been name dropping like a crazy man all day. But I'm connected to Abraham Lincoln on my mother's side because I'm from Illinois. And Abraham Lincoln decided to formally, through Congress, create the Department of Education, because Black people, formerly slaves, were property and not allowed by law to read and write. So he came up with the Department of Education, which would allow them, for the first time ever, including many Southerners, to learn how to read and write so that he could navigate a new unified country. So all of this made sense. It still makes sense. And what you know and what I know, we share. And that's power between us. And then bad things don't happen and we don't get hoodwinked and conned. So this is a place right here, right now, where democracy isn't dying. It's being rebranded in Helvetica Bold and sold back to you by the same consultants who named your dog's flea medicine. That's the nature of modern politics. So we're going to talk about voting for a second, or more precisely, the staggering number of you who don't. I know. If you're in Australia or in other countries, it's mandatory. You don't opt out of voting. You have to vote. But in the US, you don't have to vote. And because you don't have to vote, a lot of people make sure that you don't want to vote. And that means the 16 people that show up and do vote always win. So if you have 380 to 400 million people and only a tiny fraction shows up to vote, is it the 380 to 400 million people who won? No, it's the 16. And if it's a stand on your finger party, we're all standing on our fingers. 380 million of us, and we don't know why. This is why participating in your democracy matters. Every election, we light ourselves on fire. We argue over red versus blue, while about half the country is busy streaming a baking show or forgetting to register. The grand experiment of representative government has somehow become a reality show with a 49% audience dropout rate. So we're going to bring on our guest today, David Downing. He's a man who actually understands what makes people move, what makes them buy, what makes them click, what makes them vote. He's one of America's top 25 extraordinary minds in marketing, which means he spent his life convincing people that bottled water is different from tap and that slogans are substitutes for policy. But he's one of the good guys because he's helping us understand how things work and why. And unlike the grifters hawking campaign yard signs for $40 a pop, David knows the real secret. The fate of the free world is decided not by diehards or pundits, but by swing voters, that slippery species of undecided Americans who choose between authoritarianism and democracy with the same commitment they apply to picking toothpaste. David Downing, I want to welcome you to the show.
That was a lovely and long intro there, Kerry. How are things in Europe?
In Switzerland, it's perfect. The trains are on time, the air is always fresh, and the cows eat grass. It's kind of amazing. So let's jump. You can be jealous. I can do like a Swiss travelogue for 3 hours, but you're familiar with the country, I think.
Yes, I am, and I'm already jealous. By the way, how genius is that title, From Russia with Lev? I've always loved that title for that film. That's beautifully done.
And for those of you who may not, it feels familiar, but you may not know, it's from the James Bond book called From Russia with Love. So it's a play on that. Ian Fleming was really the first one in the 1950s to come up with a spy. We all started to understand how spying works. It was the beginning of the Cold War. And this is a play on that. And the guy that we just heard from literally changed America and helped invent MAGA, and now is doing everything he can to talk about it. And that's why you're here today, David, because the biggest reason nearly half the country doesn't vote, even when democracy's on life support, is that they don't seem to know it.
Yeah, I mean, Kerry, look, unfortunately or fortunately, this is just how it is. Voter participation in this country historically has never been huge. And there's lots of different reasons for that. But the thing that you touched on is from a marketing perspective. You know, when you have, let's say, a general election, the people who are running the camps, it's usually in America, there's two, sometimes there's three, but it's two usually. But what they do for marketing purposes is, and everyone who works in marketing knows this, but there's three groups, and you giggled when I told you this the first time. But there are three groups. So when you're marketing a candidate A, you divide your audience into saints, sinners, and savables. It's easy to remember because they all start with S, A, and B. They all have some sort of moral or biblical overtone to them. Your saints are the ones who are going to vote for you regardless of what you do. They're in column A. You can set it and forget it because they are your fans and they will be with you for eternity. The sinners are the ones who will never vote for you. And again, you can put them in column C and leave them there because no matter how much you spend or talk till you're blue in the face, they're never going to vote for you. It's this thin group in the middle called savables that decide almost every American election. And, you know, it's rare that we even get within less than 10%. It's usually somewhere less than 5%. Again, I mentioned when there's a third party, you do have the exceptions, like in 1912 when the Bull Moose Party took away 20-something percent, skimmed that off the top. It became a much closer race in the end. But generally, those are the three. So why American presidential elections can sound so dopey is that they're all preaching to this thin group in the middle who haven't decided until they go into the voting booth which of the two camps they're going for. And usually, by the time we get down to an election, a general election, those are two very distinct and different choices. So it kind of, I don't want to say dumbs down, but it shaves all the nuance and edges off of any argument or position.
So just to reset, David Downing, you have a group of people in the United States. They're the ones that actually make the votes that matter. They cannot tell the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, except maybe for the hairstyle. It's basically the same person. And,
it's deeper than that. It's people who really generally don't have an interest and figured, maybe something pushes them at the last minute for their civic duty. The group after this group is the group who don't vote at all, right? So maybe they're just dimly aware of it. It's easy to just say they're dimly aware, but Carrie, we have to understand a lot of people have very busy lives and don't get as heavily wrapped up in politics as others do, right? So even something as simple as getting time off work to go vote is really, it's amazing. When we talk to people from other countries, there are days set aside for voting where nobody works, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a tendency to dismiss it as uninformed, but there are some other levers at work here. You follow.
I do. And I thank you for that, David Downing. And I also thank all the wonderful comments that are coming up on YouTube and in different ways. We might even open up the phone lines if we do have a moment. We're live streaming right now on YouTube. Simply Google Carrie Harrison, Carrie spelled like Cary Grant. And that way we can stay connected to you. When you arrive at your destination, you don't have to turn off your car radio. You can step out. You can go to kpfk.net as well to be able to see the live streaming video. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at carrieharrison.com. And there you're going to get a full transcript of this entire show because it's so layered with information, you're going to want to be able to read about it. We're talking to David Downing right now. He is a branding mastermind, one of America's top 25 extraordinary minds in marketing, and why swing voters now hold the keys to the kingdom and how democracy's hanging by a thread tied to a focus group. And can you sell voting like soda? And should we try? Back in the days of Shakespeare, we know Shakespeare as a great writer. We study him as though he's a god. He was a businessman. He was an entrepreneur. He used to have free ale, free beer, because he was writing really sort of political shenanigans. And you had free beer. They did it in the nude. They did all kinds of crazy stuff. And he realized if he raised money and built theaters, he could charge tickets. And so it was really similar to voting. In other cultures, let's take Germans back in World War II. When Hitler was rising as chancellor in the beer halls, it was free beer. So it wasn't like everybody believed him. Everyone believed in free beer. And while you're at it, there's a message. And if you vote for this guy, you're going to get more free beer. And that seems to be what many of our politicians do. They offer, you're going to get rich. If you vote for me, you're going to have a yacht, or you're going to come and play golf at my club, or you're going to get this and you're going to get that. And for those swing voters that don't really understand how that works, and maybe they're hungry and desperate and don't have great jobs, that's enough.
Right.
And boom, you've got them.
So Carrie, I think what's interesting here is if you back up, right? And again, if there's an international group here to better understand exactly how the American system works, or doesn't in some cases, but when you have the primary election, right? When you have both of the parties determining who their candidate is going to be, that's a very different type of messaging because it serves a very different type of purpose. If you pulled all the messaging from one candidate, let's say one side, the Democrat or Republican, well, let's use the Democrats for this example because there were far more running. On the primary level, they are all selling the same product. The product they're selling is the Democratic Party platform. So if you are all selling the same product, how do you stand out? Well, you stand out because it's a personality contest. It really is. They're showing who they are as people. I'm the humble farmer from the Midwest, or, I belong to this group that's going to check a box, or I'm the youngest one in the bunch, or you name it. You can slice that 1,000 different ways. And so it's very personal, because really, at the end of the day, none of them is going to say anything that's very far outside whatever the Democratic Party platform is, as an example. And the way I like to talk about this is, when you think of car insurance, how it's sold in America, right? Look, all these companies are selling the exact same product. So how do they do it? They have gimmicks. They all have cartoons. There's the Geico Gecko. There's Flo from Progressive. There's the Aflac Duck. There's Jake from State Farm. The Limu Emu Snoopy with MetLife. They all have these little feel good. They never advertise the product. They always just advertise themselves, right? And you have to have some hook, some gimmick. So on the primary level, that's what happens. It's very personal. By the time we get to the general election, all that has changed. It becomes huge abstractions that can easily overlap because, again, who they're talking to is not a terribly nuanced crowd. It needs big, swarthy things that they can just say, "Oh yeah, that sounds good," and go with it that way. So there's a major difference between the primary and the general election advertising. Mark.
Well, I appreciate this clarity and this really great deep dig and deep dive here, David Downing. I want to thank you so much for coming on today and helping us understand how this is possible. We now know it's not that complicated. You guys do it, but not people from your industry often come on and help us understand what's actually happening. So I appreciate.
I'm going to tag this with one thing here, because I think that's part of the issue for voting, right? By the time the general election comes around, the candidates have stopped talking to their base, right? Because it's been months now. So the message they have left are for the people who haven't decided, and the base feels like they've been left behind, and that affects voter turnout. So it's a big circle that happens every 4 years.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much again, my friend. David Downing has joined us. We're going to take a pause. When we come back, we're going to bring on a couple of little students here, little compared to people who are not little. They're young, their minds are open, and we're going to get a quick glimpse of what they see in the future. And I hope it's going to give us hope so that we can continue to forge and navigate a better future together. This is the Carrie Harris.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, call now and get free shipping of your new CGM, plus we'll bill your insurance for you.
877-282-8102. That's 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102.